A city boy glued to his phone, Park Sooho is transported into a Jurassic world after a cataclysmic event. He evolves from a vulnerable victim to a hardened survivor, facing monstrous creatures and harsh conditions. His journey is the essence of survival of the fittest. His new life takes a big turn when he risks his life to save a wolf pup, becoming a part of the wolf pack he will call family for centuries. However, when he least expects it, Sooho is forcibly returned to Seoul, where he must conform to the new post-apocalyptic Seoul, a stark contrast from what he knew as home. On a sunny day in the city, the streets are busy with trucks as a group of pedestrians waits at a red light. Among them is Park Sooho, a guy wearing a gray hoodie, who is intently focused on his phone, tapping away on the keyboard. His mother has reminded him to come home early since the family is celebrating Junho's birthday, but Sooho already has other plans. Reluctantly, his mother suggests that he at least bring a gift, which only irritates him more. When the traffic light turns green, Sooho crosses the street, still staring at his phone. He tells his friends he can't join them at the PC cafe, despite a tempting offer of ramen from one friend. Distracted, he bumps into a businessman in a black suit, rushing to his destination. The businessman curses at him for not paying attention, prompting Sooho to apologize humbly. Sooho is a simple guy who finds the phone more interesting than the people around him. Inside, though, he's frustrated, feeling like his day is only getting worse. He starts thinking about what gift his brother Junho might like, but suddenly, a thundering roar fills the city. Everyone is confused by the loud noise, as the sky turns gray and a brilliant bolt of lightning strikes down, causing faces to pale and panic to spread. A massive explosion occurs in a nearby traffic jam, sending cars flying as civilians scramble to escape. Another lightning bolt hits the roof of a tall building, bringing it crashing down. The terrified people run in all directions, trying to save themselves. They run around, each saving their own lives and abandoning everything. Countless bolts of lightning come down from the sky, as if falling stars causing death and destruction wherever they land. Sooho, caught up in the chaos, runs alongside the panicked crowd. A woman running towards him cries out for help, but just as he reaches out, an ambulance crashes into her, narrowly missing the man next to her. In a moment of sheer frustration, Sooho sprints off, hoping he's in a bad dream. To his dismay, a giant truck is barreling toward him, barely a meter away. He flinches and shields his head, expecting to be hit, but realizes he hasn't been yet. As he slowly opens his eyes, everything around him begins to warp, and he loses consciousness. A solitary bolt of lightning illuminates the night sky as Sooho regains consciousness. He is lying in the grass, completely nude, now wondering where he is, considering he was hit by the truck. Just another day in the life of a young man these days. He turns his head to the sky, looking at the griffin like bird monsters under two moons. His heart beats rapidly. Anxious in these bizarre circumstances, he gets up from the bushes and suddenly freezes. His widened eyes stare at the giant brown bear roaring as monster saliva flies in his face. Out of nowhere, a pack of wolf-like monsters appears, starting to tear chunks from the giant bear. Sooho's pupils dilate, his face going pale with horror. The scene shifts to him in the future, sitting in front of a doctor, who hears his story about everything he's experienced and how he survived. Sooho's mind flashes back to the bear getting devoured alive. As the life escapes its corpse, the bear collapses, allowing the pack of wolves to freely feast upon its meat. Sooho is sweating bullets looking at the horrifying scene. He then hears a rustling sound behind him. A white dog locks its innocent eyes with his. Sooho trembles in fear, cursing himself. With only his toes barely touching the ground, Sooho describes how he sprinted with all his might, racing through the woods as the sun began to rise. He ran as fast as he could, finally stopping to catch his breath, only to notice a message indicating that his constitution had increased. Momentarily losing focus, his toe strikes a stone, causing him to tumble down a slope. Well, that's one way to die before your training arc. Screaming as he falls, he lands headfirst in a bush with his legs sticking out. He coughs up saliva as he struggles to stand up, hearing unusual sounds. He realizes he's now in a field full of fruit and notices some red fruits scattered on the ground. As he wonders if they're edible, a colony of ants swarms over a piece of fruit. Seeing the ants, he realizes it is safe to eat. Sooho begins devouring all the fruit, only to stop mid-bite, upon hearing a hissing sound coming from the bushes ahead of him. The rustling gets closer, and he finds himself staring into a red eye, with a blue slit for a pupil. Holding the fruit, he hiccups in fear as he sees the owner of the eye, a snake behemoth 3 times his size. Frozen in shock, his jaw hanging open, he He watches as a massive toad crushes the snake in its jaws. The two creatures disappear from his view as a giant wave rises in front of him. He hears the death throes of the snake, still frozen with the fruit in his hand. Listening to the sound of the toad chewing, he is speechless, lying on the ground, wondering if it's the forest or him that's crazy. Raindrops water the luscious green forest, while Sooho sits on a tree branch drinking the water as it drips down. He quietly sits in place as sunshine pierces through the clouds, marking the 67th day of his new life. The pack of wolves still lurk beneath the tree, still continuing their hunt. He wallows in despair, stressing that he may become their prey at any moment. He thinks about predators far more dangerous than wolves, which reinforces his determination to find a safe spot. The scene shifts to the night sky with two moons illuminating the sky. A year has passed since his stranding. Sooho tries to dislodge a bunch of enormous bananas from a massive tree branch. Successfully breaking one off, he catches it, his strengthened forearms bulging with veins as he lifts the banana. He then bites into the giant fruit, showing that he's fully adapted to the new ecosystem. Looks like someone got trained by Tarzan himself. He sinks his teeth into the banana, while thinking about the wolf pup that used to follow him. Sooho realizes how much he misses its company. While he's bent over, engrossed in the banana, he senses some water dripping onto his back, prompting him to look up. Sooho clenches his jaw in frustration as a gorilla charges toward him, smashing its fists where he stood moments before. Hanging from a vine, Sooho has barely managed to dodge the gorilla, with the unfinished banana still in his other hand. He wishes the oversized monkey good luck for next time, as its foothold collapses, letting gravity do the rest. What Sooho did not know is that the wolf pup is right underneath where the gorilla will fall. As the gorilla crashes to the ground, the wolf pup is blown away. Sooho glances down at the gorilla, now looking at the injured wolf pup. In a fit of rage, the gorilla slams its fist down, barely missing the pup, and sends it flying again. Sooho seizes the moment, swinging in behind the gorilla and using a stick to gouge its eye. The forest echoes with the harrowing screams of the injured gorilla. It grabs Sooho and hurls him violently, stopping only when he crashes into a tree. The gorilla charges at him, and with blood streaming down his face, he regrets his rash decision to save the wolf pup. The scene returns to the present, where the doctor questions Sooho about his choice. With a weary expression, Sooho explains that he can't always flee from territorial disputes, and that running isn't always the best option. Another doctor watches him as Sooho smiles, stating that there's always a dominator in each territory. Sooho continues his story, recalling the terrifying moment when the gorilla charged at him while he was immobilized and sitting against the tree. Just as the gorilla screams in pain with one eye bleeding, a ferocious snow-white wolf pounced on the enraged ape. As the wolves attacked the gorilla, Sooho's consciousness slowly began to fade. He thought this would be the end for him. The wolves didn't attack, likely recognizing him as the one who had saved their pup. It is revealed that the little wolf who had been following him all this time is actually the son of the Crimson Wolves King. Later that night, under the light of two moons, the pack of wolves howls as they charge to the edge of a cliff. Sooho, along with his little wolf companion, joins them. When his companion sees him exhausted from running, it imitates him as if to show support. Sooho then heroically scoops the little one in his arms, resembling a Princess Carrie, and continues the sprint with the pack. He's just a wholesome man doing cardio with his new family. Marking his second year in this mysterious place, the wolves and Sooho howl together in the night sky, accepting him as a member of the pack. Now 31 years have passed since his stranding. Sooho is seen running up a near-vertical cliff, only to perform an impressive backflip as he dives straight onto the titanic snake beneath. With a dagger in hand, he slays it flawlessly, supported by his wolf pack. Sooho recounts that he hasn't found civilization yet, so the wolves have become his family. He aids them in territorial fights against various creatures, from hunting boars to waging all-out war against the gorilla race. However, the hulking gorillas are durable and capable enough to take down two wolves at a time. However, Sooho supports the wolves by charging in and performing mid-air strikes with his dagger. Suddenly, a bright light envelops both Sooho and the gorilla, warping reality and causing a massive explosion that blasts all wolves and gorillas away. The scene moves to the rundown city, where a blonde girl accompanied by two men leads the way as she finds a powerful signal on her energy tracker. She reports that the dimensional energy signal is unusually high, prompting him to command his subordinate to send the coordinates to their portal management team. As the order is completed, a vibrant flash of light materializes before them, signaling the opening of a portal. The captain orders an immediate withdrawal, and the squad of 3 flees from the portal. A thundering sound echoes from the epicenter, blowing them away. The team begins to panic at the thought of deadly creatures that could end their lives emerging from the portal in front of them. Lightning sparks swirl around the blonde girl as she prepares to draw her sword. Resigning herself to fate, she orders everyone to run away while she buys time. The team urgently calls for emergency reinforcements, but the girl is ready to face whatever emerges from the fire-red portal. As she braces for the worst, the silhouette of a human appears. Her eyes widen at the sight of a man, staring squarely back at her. She remains frozen, trembling at the thought that it really might be a human. The naked human, Park Sooho, lets out a terrifying roar that rings in her ears as she remains speechless at the spectacle. Ah yes, a portal opens, and out comes a naked howling man. Just another Tuesday in Seoul. Sooho attempts to charge at her as she prepares to draw her sword, but he collapses into unconsciousness before her. The captain is astonished. That person has emerged from the portal, yet the blonde girl remains paralyzed by the overwhelming intimidation of his scream, which far exceeds the ominous presence of the dungeon monsters she has faced. As Sooho lies unconscious on the ground, she simply stares at him, trying to figure out what he could possibly be. Let's be honest, he didn't exactly make the best first impression. A member of the team reports to headquarters that a returner has arrived, and they need an ambulance immediately. The doctor finishes recording Sooho's recount of what seems to be over 1,000 years of experience in another world. The doctor thanks Sooho for his cooperation, stating that his testimony and medical examination will be forwarded to the bureau, and congratulates him on being discharged in a few days. Sooho jokingly calls the doctor Baldy, but then expresses his appreciation for listening to his story, remarking how long he has waited to talk to someone. The doctor, with a sly expression, thanks Sooho for his valuable information. Walking out of the room, he reflects that Sooho is an interesting subject who could become a popular novelist with his vividly detailed stories. Meanwhile, at the Awakener Bureau, the blonde girl Choi Soo-young complains about Sooho's data to the captain, prompting him to ask what seems off. Soo-young stares in surprise at the card, noting that his evaluation has given him an F rank. The captain feels sorry for Sooho, pointing out that even though F rank is rare, he will not receive the disability benefits that E rank patients do. Soo-young finds it hard to believe that Sooho is just an average F rank person, wondering how an F rank individual could pass through a portal, and questioning if the evaluation is accurate. The captain suggests that Sooho might have found a return stone by pure chance. He hands Soo-young a tablet with the doctor's opinion of Sooho. The diagnosis is PTSD, a common issue among F-rank returners. Soo-young looks suspiciously at the report, reading that Sooho's mannerisms resemble those of wolves. Suddenly, her memory flashes back to Sooho's intimidating howl. She double-checks if the report belongs to Park Sooho and makes a request to personally deliver it. The captain frowns at Soo-young's eagerness to deliver the report, but she insists on confirming the truth herself. At the hospital, 2 weeks have passed since Sooho's return. He lies in bed staring blankly at the ceiling, feeling a strange sense of homesickness, as the comfortable life here feels unfamiliar. Sooho wonders how he should spend his time when a nurse enters his room with food. He then gets up with a grumbling stomach. Moments after he begins eating, Soo-young enters to meet him. She finds Sooho hunched over the food, devouring it like an animal. He glares at her menacingly, but she ignores it and introduces herself. After finishing his meal, Sooho crouches in front of Soo-young to sniff her scent, remarking that it seems familiar. She reminds him that she was the first person he met after returning. Soo-young still worries about how terrifying he's seen when exiting the portal, but now he just appears to be a normal guy. Setting aside the empty tray, Sooho starts asking Soo-young questions about the bureau in a casual manner. She questions why he is talking to her so informally, so he casually responds that he is senior to her, over 1,000 years old. Soo-young pities him, thinking he is delusional, and offers him a pen, while explaining what the Awakener Bureau does. When she asks him to sign the consent form, he simply stares in awe at the pen. He sniffs the ink pen, prompting Soo-young to ask about his strange sniffing obsession. Sooho explains that he hasn't seen one for 1,000 years, and is surprised that humans still use them. Sooho begins to draw something, feeling annoyed by him. She berates him for lacking the capability to even sign a form, but eventually gives up, wondering if he is that mentally deranged. As Sooho continues to draw a wolf, Soo-young tries to get his attention and asks if he has only learned drawing in the other world. She asks him if he learned magic, martial arts, or any other powers. With a serious expression, Sooho responds that he simply learned to survive in the forest. She concludes that he survived for 10 years by running away from danger, confusing Sooho. It is explained that a true returner kills monsters and uses their dimensional energy to pass through a portal. However, Sooyoung assumes that he lived in a peaceful dimension and fortunately found a return stone. Sumo emphasizes that he spent 1,000 years in the dimension, not just a decade. This further annoys her, and she repeats that only 10 years have passed. While pointing at his date of disappearance and return, Sooho stares in dismay, reading that only 10 years passed since his disappearance in 2015. She then gives him his ID card. As Sooho reads the card, Sooyoung explains its importance for paying his hospital bills, which are subsidized by the Bureau. She advises him to carefully read the documents and return to his family before leaving. Sooho is shocked to learn that his family is still alive. Thinking back to his life in the other world, Sooho had assumed that his family would be dead if he ever returned to Earth. Despite missing his forest family of 1,000 years, he had prepared himself to be alone once again. But now, learning that his family survived the 10 years he was gone, he is overwhelmed by the revelation. However, as he reads a report stating that his parents were casualties in the dungeon break of 2015, the thought of his brother Junho comes to mind. Desperate, he dashes out of his room to find the bald doctor. The hospital staff tries to stop him, but he barges into the doctor's office. Baldy asks why he is so troubled. Sooho urgently explains that he needs the doctor's help to find his brother, his only living family. Baldy advises him that he isn't well-adjusted enough to return to society and should wait for his brother to come to him. However, with a threatening face, Sooho makes it clear that he is not seeking permission. Ah yes, threatening, a classic negotiation tactic. The doctor simply laughs it off and agrees to help Sooho, but only on a certain condition. Now sitting in a car, Sooho thanks the doctor for his assistance. The suspicious doctor instructs the driver to take good care of Sooho, as he hasn't fully recovered yet. As the taxi drives off, the doctor's assistant questions why he paid all the bills for Sooho, noting that F-rank returners are generally seen as worthless. Baldy laughs and expresses his interest in Sooho's vivid stories. He asks his assistant to get the debilitated door handle replaced. While she wonders at what could possibly cause such damage, Baldy thinks back to how Sooho busted it open. Peacefully sitting down in his chair, he recalls how long it has been since he last saw such an irregular returner. The scene transitions to a traffic jam somewhere in the city, where Sooho's taxi is playing news about an unexpected dungeon portal break on the radio. A green reptilian monster with a long tongue is shown on the screen, along with news of an emergency joint operation from the National Defense Ministry. The footage shows the ministry resolving the situation in under 60 minutes. But the report also tragically announces the loss of 12 soldiers and 2 tanks. Suddenly, the channel switches to an exciting advertisement for the supernatural power fighting competition, SPSC. The taxi driver is excited about the upcoming match between the rank 34th, Mihail Yorvis, and rank 48th, Beyond Horizon, with the winner earning a title match against the Japanese world #1 champion, Hero. Hearing the hype, Sooho is puzzled by the modern world, recalling how Dr. Baldy mentioned that the world had changed drastically since the incident. Immediately afterwards, a recruitment advert for Korea's #4 guild plays. Sooho's driver complains that he would be earning big money as a hunter if he were an awakener, confusing Sooho. The driver, sensing Sooho's ignorance, decides to explain, revealing that a door to another world opened across the globe 10 years ago, on what is known as the Day of the Great Disaster. He elaborates that almost a tenth of the world's population was slashed by the first invasion from the many worlds, as the military then was not sufficient to deal with the innumerable creatures, so militaries used mercenaries to make up for the missing manpower. The disappearing persons, now being awakened with powers, were given mercenary licenses to fight monsters for money. Out of curiosity, Sooho asks how one gets a license, but the driver laughs at him, as no average person can get one. He informs Sooho about the mercenary examination at the Awakener Bureau, catching Sooho's interest. The sun sets over a suburban part of the city, where Sooho is dropped off by a taxi. His driver points to the house whose address he was given and wishes Sooho well on his family reunion. As Sooho approaches the house, he finds an old woman cleaning the window. When the old lady asks his purpose for coming, he asks for Junho. The woman chastises him for talking to her disrespectfully, since he is just a kid to her. Sooho stares intensely at her, but the old lady curses at him to make him leave. As he's wondering if the address is wrong, he hears the old woman complaining to a child about loan sharks hounding her again. When a child named Gunwoo asks her what happened, she comforts the kid and expresses sympathy for his bad luck. Sooho overhears her explaining that the child's father is overwhelmed with debt despite working himself to the bone. Curious, Sooho grabs a debt letter from their mail and is shocked to find Junho's name on it, realizing the extent of his brother's struggles. As he walks away, Sooho reflects on how in the wilderness, strength is the ultimate law. However, in the real world, he begins to understand that true power and the law are dictated by money. Now at the Awakener Bureau, Sooho places his documents on an information desk. Surprisingly, he is informed by the reception lady that his mercenary examination application has been denied due to incomplete requirements. Despite his insistence, she informs him that he is just shy of 4 Awakener points to be eligible. Apparently, 1,000 years of experience doesn't count if you don't get good marks. Sooho argues, pointing out that he crossed a portal recently, which should count for something. The lady laughs, explaining that crossing portals usually tears people's bodies apart. When Sooho confirms that the experience was indeed painful, she dismisses him and suggests that he cease his delusions. In the end, she advises him to return after gaining some Awakener points, either at the academy or through missions. As Sooho walks away, grumbling about the system, he approaches a goblin bounty board. He notes the location of Suwon Fields and immediately seeks out his taxi driver, who explains the high wall system and the map application to him. Hearing about the importance of the map application for navigating the 12 areas and the travel gates between them, Sooho realizes he urgently needs a smartphone. He bids the driver farewell, now standing before the Suwon Field gate. Sooho walks up to 2 heavily armed soldiers, who ask for his purpose. When Sooho tells them he is here to hunt, they ask him for his mercenary license. The guards tell him that no civilians are allowed into fields without a license. As they talk, their attention is drawn to shouts from other guards, warning them to close the exit gate. However, it's too late because the military vehicle smashes through. The driver is attacked by a green monster with him in the vehicle, ultimately crashing into a concrete wall. The guards quickly call for emergency backup and form a line to take down the monster. A claw smashes through the vehicle's side window as the giant creature, blood dripping from its jaw, emerges. The guards unleash a hail of bullets, leaving only a mutilated corpse behind. As the situation calms, one of the guards wonders where the suspicious guy who arrived in the taxi is gone, joking that he probably ran away in fear. Meanwhile, Sooho has snuck inside and wanders through Suwon Field, taking in the familiar yet alien sounds and smells of the city. Watching the rundown, abandoned remains of a once thriving area, he wonders if all cities except Seoul suffered such a fate. As night falls, Sooho stands on a rooftop, preparing for his hunt. He leaps off the multi-story building, creating a crater where he lands, noting how his body feels heavier than before. Determined, he begins to sprint again, scaling a building like a superhero, only to realize he has lost some of his power since returning. Under the moonlight, Sooho picks up the scent of prey and swiftly moves toward a nearby area. Filled with suspicious groaning noises, he finds a group of goblins, armed and surrounding a white wolf. One of the green creatures drools at the sight of the wolf, while the injured animal stands its ground. Looking more like a villain than a hero, Sooho makes an intimidating entry just before the goblins' failed attempt to finish off the injured wolf. Marking them as his prey, Sooho crushes a goblin's head with his fist alone. But all of a sudden, a system menu calculating his class appears, showing dozens of classes to choose from. Sooho stares in shock, wondering whether the poorly timed menus are a system error. Surrounded by the error-filled menus, Sooho stands confused, swiping at the windows in frustration. Meanwhile, the goblin monsters, sensing an opportunity, surround him. One goblin roars, exposing razor-sharp teeth, but Sooho quickly counters, smashing it with his powerful fists. He beats them so mercilessly, instilling such fear in one goblin that it tries to escape. As it clings to a wall and looks back, it sees Sooho materialize behind it, just before being violently thrown to the ground, resulting in instant death. Error after error appears, showing failure to restore Sooho's skills when he finally realizes that his stats merely stopped increasing about a century ago, as he was in peak condition already. Surprised by status windows now on Earth, he figures out the errors are why he is weaker than before. An option to open the achievement shop catches his eye, and, curious, he presses the button. Disappointment washes over him when he finds only 7 points available, but he makes the best of it by purchasing a donut and a water bottle. He turns his head to the source of the pitiful whimpers of the heavily injured white wolf. He sits next to the poor mother wolf, wondering if she has been poisoned. In her last breaths, the mother wolf leaves his baby in Sooho's care. Puzzled, he tells her not to give up, but she begs one last time. As the little pup licks its nearly dead mother, Sooho feels a pang of guilt and wonders if this encounter is somehow fated. Reaching into his jacket, he offers the food and water to the pup. Standing amidst the bodies of the goblins he defeated, Sooho counts the 7 corpses eligible for bounty, wishing he had a vehicle to transport them. The next day, Sooho awakens to the sound of birds singing. He finds himself leaning against a tree, beside a makeshift gravestone, with the little pup resting in his lap. Deciding to move on, he heads to the 27th gate, where a guard is directing traffic leaving Suwon Field. The guard informs a hunter that he must go through decontamination before claiming his bounties. Suddenly, everyone's attention is drawn to a bewildering scene. The guard stands speechless as a man casually carries the corpses of goblins on his back, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Accompanied by a wolf pup, the onlookers initially mock him for lugging the goblins like an idiot, but then they fall silent, realizing he might have slain them all single-handedly. As you can see, subtlety isn't exactly Sooho's strong suit. At the payout counter, the lady informs Sooho that he will receive $4,100 for the goblins and 3 blood crystals. However, she notes that the vet services for his puppy will cost $2,000, leaving him with a total of $2,100. When Sooho asks about the blood crystals, she pulls one out of a goblin's chest, explaining that their value increases with the amount of stored energy. She hands him the cash and advises him to get registered to receive payments directly into his account. Sooho finds a wad of cash in his hand unreal, realizing how easy it will be to make money once he's registered as a mercenary. The scene then shifts to a delivery truck, where Mr. Park tells an old acquaintance that he's been busy since starting his job as a truck driver. The old man congratulates him on the new job, and Mr. Park explains that despite the risks, it pays far more than city jobs. The old man cheerfully offers a free snack for Junho. Mr. Park gladly accepts it and requests a bottle of soju before he takes off in his white truck. Singing as he drives, Mr. Park fails to notice a taxi tailing him. He stops at his destination and continues working in a good mood until he hears someone shout his name. Park Junho, Sooho's younger brother, turns around upon hearing his name. Suddenly, blood spurts from his head as a man with brown hair beats him with a baton, knocking him down. The man casually greets Junho and taunts him for apparently abandoning his son, Junho. Junho's face drains of color and terror as he looks up at the trio of gangsters looming over him. The sounds of violent beating and painful groans echo throughout the block as Junho silently endures the punishment. The man in the white suit chastises Junho, commenting on how hard it was to track him down, despite his apparent financial improvement. With trembling hands, Junho offers a sum of cash, totaling $2,400, pleading for forgiveness. The man in white counts the money, while adding nonsensical fees, apathetically declaring the amount insufficient. Trembling, Junho, despite being beaten and battered, bursts into tears as he humbly requests forgiveness. He promises to pay the remaining amount within 3 days. The man in white strikes him on the shoulder again and furiously asks him if he is aware of 3 days' worth of interest. Junho beckons that he knows full well, making the white suit man curse him for lying. Hearing a voice shout Junho's name, the savage man stops his baton in midair. The two turn their eyes to a guy with a white wolf pup. The man in white awkwardly looks at the weird guy who interrupted him, while Junho silently stares in disbelief. He utters a single word, bro, as he looks at the furious guy in a blue jacket, who seems to not have aged a day since disappearing 10 years ago. Upon hearing Junho call the stranger his brother, the man dressed in white is bewildered. He glares daggers at the muscular man with a devilish expression, who is staring back at him with immense anger. Sumo takes a seat opposite Junho while the trio of gangsters watches the scene unfold in silence. Sooho, by mentioning his brother's name, seeks to confirm if the person before him is indeed Junho. As Junho reaches out to his elder brother, memories from the past flood his mind. He recalls a time when school bullies were extorting money from him. A young Junho calls out to his brother, who is nearby taking out the trash. Despite Junho's pleas for help, Sooho ignores him and continues disposing of the trash bags. Not reacting to a single cry of his little brother, Junho stares longingly at his elder brother in tears, heartbroken by his brother's ignorance and abandonment. Even the bullies question if Sooho really is Junho's brother. Junho has always regretted his brother never helping him. as far as he could remember. He then recalls the day of his birthday when a major disaster struck. The news of unexplained explosions nationwide is playing on TV. A young Junho watches as reports of alien creatures are announced. Just as the doorbell rings, he runs to the door, hoping to see his mother. To his dismay, it is his aunt and uncle, relieved that the child is safe at home. The two adults ask him if he knows where Sooho is and tell him to pack pronto, as they must leave immediately. In a flash, Junho is blown backward, as an explosion blasts him away along with debris. Demonic monsters with long necks and terrifying faces have destroyed Junho's house. Injured and with blood streaming down one side of his face, Junho was paralyzed with horror, staring at a massive eyeball peering into his soul through a hole in the wall. At that moment, Junho believed he didn't care at all about his brother's survival. Now, in the present, he still thinks that's how he feels about the brother facing him. With a comforting aura, Sooho remarks on how much Junho has grown. In disbelief, Junho sees the brother he thought was dead, alive and standing before him. The heartwarming moment is interrupted by the man in white, who mocks Junho as being delusional and taunts him for calling the cool young guy his older brother. Sooho immediately grabs the man's head and launches him several meters behind. The man in white violently hits the ground before he lands on a nearby fence, now collapsed. His bald lackeys stare in shock at the state of their leader. Sooho asks after Junho's condition, who stutters still in confusion. Sooho's solution to every problem is brute force and intimidation. It's worked so far right. One of the ruffians delivers a forceful roundhouse kick directly to the side of Sooho's head. However, Sooho remains completely unfazed, silently staring at the man's leg. Suddenly, the assailant cries out in pain as his leg fractures from the impact. The third gangster, witnessing this, loses the will to fight, questioning whether Sooho might be an awakener. Sooho invites the man to approach him, but the guy pleads for mercy, insisting that he had tried to stop the others from hurting Junho. Sooho places a stack of cash on the ground and asks the guy to come get it. While the man fumbles in fear and confusion, Sooho gives him a death stare and orders him to leave with the money. The man bows down, thankful for the mercy Sooho has shown him, as the two brothers walk away from the pitiful trio of debt collectors. Later, at Junho's house, night has fallen by the time they arrive. An old woman looks on in bewilderment as she sees Junho with a young man. She repeatedly asks if he's sure this is Junho's elder brother, to which Junho cheerfully confirms. Sooho then offers her some meat as a gift. As the disbelief fades, the old lady invites the brothers inside, mentioning that Gunwoo fell asleep waiting for Junho to return. Sooho's wolf pup quickly heads to where Gunwoo, Junho's son, is fast asleep on the floor. Sitting around the sleeping child, Junho introduces his son, his most precious treasure, to Sooho. Curious, Sooho asks about the boy's mother. Junho sadly explains that Gunwoo's mother left to seek a better life because he couldn't provide for his family. Sooho then suggests they grab some drinks. At the dining table, Junho expresses his surprise at finding his brother after so long, noting how Sooho hasn't aged and has even become an awakener. Sooho immediately asks about Junho's debt amount, which is $50,000. With a cool smile on his injured face, Junho explains that he can easily pay it off with his new job. Curious, Sooho asks what the new job entails. Hesitating a little, Junho mentions that the pay for transporting goods in surviving cities is good due to its risky nature. Sooho then asks if Junho owns the truck he uses. Junho reveals that it belongs to his old landlady's son, who died during the Great Disaster. This tragedy might be why the landlady has cared for Gunwoo, as if he were her own son. Meanwhile, the little pup continues to lick Gunwoo, who wakes up surprised to find the dog at home. Gunwoo comes out of his room with the dog in hand and calls out to his father. Junho cheers up looking at Gunwoo wide awake. The innocent boy wonders who is with his father, so Junho introduces Gunwoo to his uncle. The little guy humbly asks permission to play with the dog, making Sooho smile at the heartwarming scene. Gunwoo is filled with joy playing with the white pup. Junho remarks how it is nice to see Gunwoo's wish for a pet dog fulfilled. Turning serious, Sooho proposes that Junho work together with him, making Junho wonder what it is about. Sooho enthusiastically explains that he will do everything, and only needs Junho's truck. Clueless, the younger brother asks for more details. With an intimidating look on his face, Sooho reveals his job as a monster hunter. Junho's jaw hangs speechless at the shocking reveal. At the Awakener Bureau, The previously doubtful lady is astonished, as she congratulates Sooho on his rapid progress and registration. Sooho finds out that he has been classified as an F-rank Druid. The lady explains to him how to set up his credit account using his new Awakener ID. She even presents a gift box to him containing a smartphone, advising him to download the Awakener Bureau app. She adds that all the information he needs on mercenary exams and hunting can be found there. Enthusiastically, she motivates him to protect humanity by presenting all the benefits of hunting. She mentions some recent technical issues that have led to changes, asking if he knows how to access his status screen. Confused, Sooho opens his status screen and sees his surprisingly low stats, which explains why he has been feeling weak. It is revealed that he is currently a level 1 F-rank Druid. The scene transitions to a white truck driving in the Green Mountains. Junho was on a call with Sooho at the Awakener Bureau. He congratulates him on being an official Awakener, even getting a phone as a gift. He tells Sooho that he will return after delivering his last batch, and asks if the final step is to simply pass the mercenary exam. Sooho, on his way home, tells Junho that settling his debt comes first. Junho is taken aback, warning Sooho of danger, since he is still only an F rank, making Sooho promptly hang up. Junho ponders over how much Sooho has changed. Meanwhile, Sooho finds the closest monster bounty at the Namyeonju gate on his new phone. The scene transitions to cars lined up at Gate 77, urging the guards to hurry up at the checkpoint. In one of the cars, 2 men in the front look with disdain at the 3 trembling in the back. The driver tells them to chill out, since they're Awakeners. He motivates them with the status of becoming Shila Guild members, if they pass the test. The handsome man with a goatee curses at the incompetent wimps. His brow furrows thinking about how they use their connections to leech off pension benefits, just like the previous batch of weaklings. Meanwhile, the guards look at Sooho entering barehanded all by himself. They wonder if he'll be alright alone without equipment. His buddy tells him to calm down, since the hunter is famous for killing 7 goblins barehanded in Gate 27. Still waiting to pass, the goatee man feels jealous of Sooho's arrogance for going to a field empty-handed like it's a picnic, calling him insane. Apologizing for the delay, the guards let the car pass and wish them luck. The goatee man orders his driver, Han Songjin, to chase after Sooho. Affirming his command, the driver races after Sooho. However, as soon as they exit the tumult of the field, they are shocked not to find the man who turned around the corner mere seconds ago. Ham looks out his window to find Sooho, but the goatee guy smiles villainously, having discovered someone worthy of his interest. Leaving a trail of dust clouds behind, Sooho sprints through the forest. He suddenly stops, taking a break as he confirms his current stats. Looking at his status screen, he's considering starting training, since his stats have fallen significantly. Just then, the sound of blades clashing catches his attention. He looks toward the source of the sound, wondering if it is a sword fight. Hearing another voice of someone raging scream, he pinpoints the source and smiles. With a demonic expression, he feels exhilarated at the opportunity of witnessing a battle of humans, rather than monsters. A gloved hand holding a dagger spurts out copious amounts of blood, as its owner screams in pain. Perched atop the ruins of a building, Sooho observes as someone taunts a group of Awakeners. The savage voice mocks the Awakeners, telling them to disappear. He then looks at a gang of thugs surrounding 3 Awakeners. Bored, he comments that they will probably waste the whole day like this. Frustrated, a large man steps out of a blue truck, demanding to know why his underlings haven't finished their job. One of the trapped Awakeners curses their fate upon seeing the giant muscular man. The behemoth, Choi Gu-shik, orders his lackeys to deal with the 3 Awakeners. One of the trio exclaims that Choi has a bounty of $40,000. As Choi begins to walk away, the bounty amount catches Sooho's attention. The 3 Awakeners in green attempt to flee in fear of Choi. The giant man approaches them like a predator, proudly announcing his name and bounty, daring them to defeat him if they can. The 3 Awakeners stand back to back, holding their swords, lamenting their bad luck and having to fight Choi Gu-shik. The spiky-haired guy asks Choi if they are free to go, if they give it their all in the fight. Charging at them with a monstrous expression, Choi declares that it would ruin the fun. As the spiky-haired guy begs for a chance, Sooho leaps through a broken window on the roof, stopping Choi in his tracks. Choi looks down disdainfully at the smaller man, interrupting his fun. The 3 Awakeners and Choi's lackeys are stunned. Wondering who this newcomer is, Sooho glares at Choi, who is merely twice his size, prompting Choi to ask who he is and how he got there. With a smug grin, Sooho confirms the bounty on Choi's head, asking if it really is $40,000. Ignoring the man in the black hoodie, Choi orders Sooho to introduce himself. With a fierce gaze, Sooho declares that he is someone in need of money. Choi's underlings question Sooho's sanity. To everyone's surprise, Choi bursts into maniacal laughter. Choi thinks that Sooho is probably not from the Bureau, while Sooho points a death stare at the giant man. Choi's eyes glow crimson red as he taunts Sooho for making a mistake fighting him. Sooho's eyes widen as he loses control of his body due to Choi's glaring red eyes. Choi laughs as he explains his skill. It paralyzes anyone if they look into his eyes for 5 seconds. Sooho silently stares at Choi, who then orders his lackeys to stop gawking and beat Sooho up. The men in brown cloaks pity Sooho for getting involved with the wrong gang, while the men in green clench their teeth in despair. However, everyone witnesses Sooho's fist instantly strike Choi's face and halt in their dismay, with his supposed victim's fist pressed against his cheek. Choi questions how Sooho can possibly move under his skill's influence. Clenching his other fist, Sooho's mouth spread into a wide grin, inquiring if Choi was using magic. Choi stands still in fear, as Sooho throws his fist toward him with a devilish grin. Choi's glowing red eyes widen, and the horror that awaits him. For a moment, Sooho's fist halts inches from Choi's face, causing a confident grin to spread across Choi's face as he begins to taunt Sooho. The monstrous man prepares to thoroughly punish Sooho, but before he can act, something smashes into his face. Sooho's knee connects hard with Choi's forehead, and he mocks Choi for relying solely on his bind skill. Sooho then swings another punch at Choi. In desperation, Choi tries to activate the bind skill again, but Sooho delivers a jab to his jaw, followed by a flurry of punches. Sooho grabs the once intimidating Choi and hurls him into a glass window, shattering it. Now appearing more villainous than Choi, Sooho remarks on how dull the fight has become. Karma strikes quickly, how the tables have turned. The 3 men in green stare in astonishment at the sight of Sooho easily defeating the infamous Choi Gushik. As Choi groans on the ground, Sooho asks Choi's lackeys if they want to fight. They quickly decline, choosing to avoid any further conflict. Sooho then orders them to come over and asks if they have any rope. The spiky-haired guy eagerly mentions that he does. With his hands in his pockets, Sooho casually asks the lackeys in brown cloaks about their bounties. They plead with him, claiming they were coerced into working for Choi and have no bounties. Choi, feeling betrayed, curses his underlings as tears mix with the blood on his face. He accuses them of being traitors, having leashed off his power for so long. Sooho is surprised at how quickly Choi regained consciousness. Choi's lackeys, now cursing him, openly disrespect their former boss. Amidst the noise, Sooho asks the lackeys if they truly have no bounties, and they shamelessly agree. However, the spiky-haired man steps up and reveals that they are all criminals with bounties on their heads. Choi's gang begins angrily shouting when Choi asks Sooho if he feels restricted by the city's laws. Choi fails to convince Sooho to join him in living the life of kings as criminals, getting stomped under Sooho's foot, hurt by his nonsense. Sooho tells him to shut up and stay asleep. He leaves the imprint of his shoe sole as froth flows out of the unconscious Choi's mouth. Sooho turns around and looks at the gang with bounties on their heads, who resign to their fate. Thinking they are too many to carry, the spiky-haired fellow offers his car. Sooho asks them to take a nap as he proceeds to beat them all unconscious. Later, as they drive in the spiky-haired man's red car, the driver asks Sooho how he can repay him. Sooho nonchalantly replies that he didn't intend to save them. The 2 in the backseat insist that Sooho saved their lives regardless of his intentions. Seizing the moment, Sooho asks about their powers. The 3 share their skills. Sooho questions what skills are, confused about how they can possess 3. The spiky-haired guy explains that he learned his tracking skills using a skill book. Pondering, Sooho is surprised that magic can be learned through books, making the driver wonder if he is clueless about skill books. Thinking back to Choi's bind skill, Sooho decides he should learn a skill or 2 for future use. As they drive, Sooho notices a giant blue portal and asks if it is indeed a portal. The spiky-haired guy who is driving the car confirms that it's the level 1 dungeon they plan to visit. Sooho, disappointed, remarks that he can't enter without a mercenary license. The driver is shocked, unable to believe that someone so powerful lacks a license. Sooho confirms this without hesitation, further astonishing the guy. The driver then recalls that once the military clears out an invasion, dungeons are the only way to gain enough experience to collect dimensional energy and rank up. starting from level 1. The driver's mouth hangs open in disbelief at the idea of an absolute newbie like Sooho, who doesn't even know the basics, defeating the rank C criminal boss, Choi Gushik. Glancing at the driver's astonished expression, Sooho asks what happened. The spiky-haired driver, still puzzled, inquires about Sooho's rank. When Sooho reveals his rank, the driver is so shocked that he nearly drives off a cliff. Sooho comes up with an idea and asks the driver for a favor. The scene shifts to a giant portal from which a silhouette, appearing to be the captain, emerges. Behind him, 4 exhausted awakeners follow. A brown-haired guy, barely walking from the pain, complains about his injured arm. The captain rushes ahead, while his partner calls for a medic. The captain angrily questions whether mercenary licenses are being handed out for free nowadays. He declares that he will fire whoever is responsible for selecting the worthless recruits. Hun, trying to calm the captain down, laughs and reminds him that the guild is not doing well. The captain curses furiously at the wealthy parents who buy licenses for their kids, using brokers to bring nearly dead monsters to them. This way, the kids are carried through dungeons by mercenaries, leaving them without any real combat experience. The captain expresses his frustration at how these weaklings join guilds and become burdens on their teams. He is angered by how society is manipulated by these fools who misuse their power. Observing this, Han suggests grabbing some drinks to cool down. They approach a group of officers, causing a commotion about a level 1 dungeon that is soon to disappear. Captain John greets Captain Kong Min Hyuk, who reports that someone captured 10 Ravagers and dropped them off here. When John inquires further, Captain Kong explains that this includes the infamous C rank, Choi Gushik, leaving John puzzled. He dismisses it, theorizing that a high ranker must have been involved. To his surprise, Captain Kong elaborates that an F ranker, without even a license, single-handedly accomplished this feat, shocking John. John asks for more details, but Captain Kong has only heard that the F ranker beat up everyone. He adds that Choi's nose, ribs, and cheeks were broken. Captain John recalls the mysterious F ranker he saw at Gate 77 and urges Captain Kong to reveal where he went. As soon as he learns that the F ranker was last seen heading to the portal, John sprints towards the colossal blue gate. His heart pounding with anticipation, John eagerly sets off, dreaming of discovering a hidden talent worthy of the Shila Guild, if the rumors prove true. He immediately approaches the operator, seeking information about the F-ranked adventurer who captured Choi. He inquires about the adventurer's location and the specific door used to enter the portal. At the same time, Sooho enters the portal alongside the driver. Sooho notes that he experiences no pain and that his clothes remain intact. The driver explains that items lacking dimensional energy cannot pass through the portal and mentions that Sooho's clothes, made from dungeon materials, are worth at least $2,000. Sooho turns back, observing the door behind him. When he inquires, the driver explains that it is one of many portal doors linking to 38 dungeons. The spiky-haired driver informs Sooho that the portal they entered has led them to the 24th dungeon. Suddenly, the dungeon door vanishes. The driver reassures Sooho, explaining that the door will reappear once they clear the dungeon. Sooho inquires if clearing means killing all the monsters lurking in the dungeon. However, the driver clarifies that they only need to kill the strong ones. Sooho stretches his body and tells the driver to wait while he finishes off the monsters in an instant. Before the driver can grasp what Sooho means, Sooho has already taken off like a jet plane. The driver, amazed by Sooho, wonders who he really is and considers that Sooho might break the all-time record for this dungeon. Lost in thoughts about Sooho's immense power, the driver suddenly realizes that Sooho lacks any search skills. He becomes worried that Sooho might not find the door location within the allotted time and rushes to find him. He knows that if Sooho fails to locate the portal in time, there's a high possibility it could be trapped forever and even disappear with the dungeon. The scene shifts to Captain John, who learns that he is late and that the F-ranker he was pursuing has already entered the dungeon. Meanwhile, Sooho is busy hunting some nasty-looking goblins. As he searches for crystals, he becomes disgusted by their smell and finds only a single one among all the monsters he killed. When he kills a monster, a system panel opens up, making him realize he is earning experience points. The scene then shifts to the driver, who encounters many dead monsters while searching for Sooho. He uses his track skill to pinpoint Sooho's location and follows the lead. Sooho examines the experience points he has earned and discovers that he can purchase 2 skills, one for taming and the other for summoning. As he analyzes these skills, 2 brainless goblins leap at him. Relying on his instincts, Sooho kills them in a split second. The system then informs him that he has leveled up. With the increase in experience points, a critical error appears in his system, indicating that additional sync is required. Annoyed by these errors, Sooho uses 100 experience points to learn the summoning skill, which allows him to summon a tree spirit. He uses his skill, and a delicate little fairy appears before his eyes. Amused, he recalls the last time he saw the fairy in the jungle, mistaking it for a firefly. He instructs his tree spirit to search for the remaining goblins. The tree spirit promptly departs, sending memories directly to Sooho's mind. Sooho finds this process amusing, yet he wonders if it is slow, due to the skill's level, which is just 1. As Sooho checks his status menu, he discovers 2 other skills he can learn, the search skill and the track skill. Assuming these skills to be useful, as their names suggest, he immediately uses his remaining points to acquire them. He uses his search skill and experiences a strange feeling. He analyzes the information from the dead goblins and tracks a stronger monster nearby. Quickly rushing to the location, he finds the driver overwhelmed by a bigger, nastier goblin with a shield. The driver feels relieved to see Sooho, hoping for rescue. Sooho, however, is angry, reminding the driver that he told him to wait and not leave the spot. Seeing the driver in a tough situation, Sooho wastes no time on arguments. He jumps on the beast and swiftly knocks it out. The goblin charges towards Sooho, only to be overpowered by his raw strength. Sooho hurls the goblin against a stone, leaving it badly injured, and lands a final blow with the goblin's sword he picked up earlier. He levels up and acquires 120 achievement points. He remarks that he won't complain, as he's gaining plenty of experience points. With the goblin monster, apparently the boss, slain, Sooho wonders if the door will open. The driver, appearing confused and spaced out, assures Sooho that the door should open any moment now. Soon, the door opens, and they leave the dungeon. As they exit the portal and return, some soldiers speculate if Sooho is the same person their captains, Kong and Zhang, were searching for. The soldiers promptly contact their captains, informing them about the F-ranker they were looking for. Meanwhile, the driver tells Sooho that he has to meet his teammates and will be on his way. Sooho thanks him for his support and mentions that he will leave the clothes at the warehouse. After changing clothes and exiting the warehouse, Sooho is greeted by Captain Kong, who is eager to recruit him at any cost. The captain asks if Sooho can spare a few minutes to discuss an important matter. When Sooho inquires about his identity, the captain introduces himself as the leader of the 27th Combat Team of the Shila Guild. Sooho agrees to listen and follows Kong. While enjoying coffee, Kong invites Sooho to join his guild, assuring him that the Shila Guild will provide the best environment for his growth. Sooho, however, politely declines, showing no interest. Sweat drips down Kong's face as he anxiously tries to convince Sooho. Captain Kong tells Sooho that if he is associated with another guild, he will submit an official offer to recruit him. Sooho refuses, stating that he is not currently associated with any guild. Despite the captain's insistence, Sooho makes it clear that he does not want to work as an underling for anyone. The scene shifts as Sooho visits his brother and nephew. Finding that they have not yet returned, he goes up to the rooftop to wait, wondering if they are spending some family time together. While Sooho rests, the landlady appears and mocks the new generation for always wasting their time. Sooho invites the granny to join him on the rooftop, noting that the weather is perfect for a nap. She declines, saying she has chores to attend to. Sooho stands up and helps her, prompting her to ask if he is really Junho's older brother. She remarks that he seems to be aging in the opposite direction, if that's true. Sooho responds that it's not quite, as she assumes, but rather the opposite. He feels he has aged a bit too much. The granny doesn't seem surprised, acknowledging that anything could happen in this world, since monsters started appearing everywhere. She advises Sooho to take care of his brother and himself, expressing a wish for their reunion, not to be a brief one. Sooho reassures the granny not to worry about him, saying he's not going to die that easily. The granny mutters that overconfident people are often the first to meet their end. As she heads downstairs, Sooho's brother and nephew arrive, inquiring if Sooho is on the rooftop. The granny nods, indicating they will find him there, goofing around. When Junho and his son meet Sooho, he appears relieved. Sooho hands Junho an envelope, informing him that it contains $50,000, enough to cover his debts. Sooho asks his brother to settle his debt and return with dinner. Junho is overwhelmed, finding it hard to believe, and breaks into tears. He He asks how he can possibly repay such a favor. Sooho asks Junho if he has money with him to buy some food and drinks on his way back. Junho smiles, assuring Sooho that he will be back before he knows it, and asks him to look after his son while he's gone. As Junho leaves, Sooho finds his nephew playing with a dog. A system panel opens, prompting Sooho to name the dog. He asks his nephew what they should call the little pup. His nephew suggests the name Bekgu. Sooho agrees that the name has a nice ring to it, and names the pup accordingly. As the pup gets named, it becomes energetic and plays joyfully with Sooho's nephew. With the sun about to set, Sooho grows concerned about why his brother hasn't returned yet. He notices a van on his doorstep and wonders if it might be his brother. He goes downstairs to greet him, but when the door opens, Junho stumbles in, badly beaten and drenched in blood. Seeing his son, Junho faints immediately. Sooho, enraged, vows to seek revenge on the debt organization. The scene shifts to the organization, where its men are enjoying themselves. Suddenly, the door of their building swings open, and one of their men, battered and bruised, arrives, warning them that they are in trouble. The men charge toward the door, only to face Sooho, who knocks them all onto the tables. Emerging from the shadows, Sooho delivers a beating that they will never forget. After incapacitating all the personnel, Sooho moves toward their boss. The boss, frightened, is unable to formulate a plan before Sooho smashes his and his bodyguard's legs with a table. Sooho then asks if he is Kim Jong-soo. Kim nods and replies that he is indeed the one, asking Sooho who he is. Sooho replies that he is simply someone who wants to settle Junho's debt, and that he is here for that sole reason. He hands over the cash envelope, but Kim accuses him of being hostile, for having raised his hands against hardworking people. This accusation enrages Sooho, and he delivers a harsh slap to Kim, accusing him of starting it by beating up someone who just wanted to settle his debt. Sooho tells Kim that all he had to do was accept the check and let the man go. But instead, he crossed the line. After being slapped harshly, Kim coughs up blood. Sooho gives him two options: either get slapped to death or settle the debt once and for all. Kim, barely able to speak from the continuous blows, weakly agrees to settle the debt. Sooho then sits on the desk and forces the organization's men to shout loudly and clearly that all debts with Junho have been settled. Why does this remind me of ragging in my college days? The men, drenched in blood with broken teeth, shout loudly and repeatedly as instructed. Sooho warns them never to show their faces to him again, saying that if they were to cause trouble again, he might not let them live. The men bow down to Sooho. As Sooho leaves, Kim, the boss of the organization, curses him and begins to plot revenge for all the commotion caused. Meanwhile, Captain Khan rushes toward his team's HQ. He asks a man named Park to look up details on a person he has found. Park, appearing dissatisfied, informs Khan that the individual is just an F-ranker and nothing more, having only recently registered as an awakener. Khan insists, urging Park to investigate Sooho's profile because something about him feels off. As Park tries to access the ID, he encounters a denial of access. Finding it strange, Park attempts to bypass the issue through the back gate. After hacking into the profile, he discovers some unusual information about Sooho, questioning whether he is truly an F-ranker. As Park delves into the information, he discovers that Sooho has not yet been affiliated with any guild. Analyzing his awakener skills, they are shocked to find that Sooho is a conjurer, a designation they have no understanding of. While reviewing Sooho's skills, Park finds details about his abilities related to bread and water. He asks Kong if Sooho defeated Choi using only these items. Kong struggles to imagine Sooho throwing bread and water bottles to knock out Choi, finding it hard to believe. Park also notes that Sooho has been missing for 10 years and wonders if he might be some sort of special agent. Kong feels disheartened, realizing that Sooho, whom he thought was a big catch, turns out to be a member of the intelligence service. Park advises Kong to forget about Sooho, as he seems to belong to the intelligence agency. Deflated, Kong asks Park to join him for coffee. Despite his disappointment, Kong remains suspicious, wondering why a secret agent would enter a level 1 dungeon. He requests Park to keep a close watch on Sooho, but Park repeats that Kong should forget about him. Kong insists on receiving weekly reports about Sooho, but Park explains that his busy schedule makes that impossible. The scene shifts to a hospital, where Sooho visits his brother and asks if he is doing all right. Junho wonders why Sooho brought so much food for him. Sooho explains that he heard eating plenty of food helps with recovery. He appears concerned and inquires if his brother is feeling any better. Junho replies that he is improving and should be able to remove his bandages the next day. He asks Sooho if he is preparing for the mercenary license exam and wishes him success. Junho also offers to help find a guild for him. Sumo recalls his past as the king of the forest and declines, stating he refuses to be an underling. He tells his brother not to look for a guild, because he plans to create a brand new one himself.